Elizabeth could come out and play. Patty had originally told the little girl no, because she was making dinner, and she was just like, first she was like no, but then the little girl at the door and Elizabeth were excited, so they're hopping up and down, like saying, please, please, can I go? So Patty had told Elizabeth she could go out to play for about an hour, but she had to be home by 6. So on this day, which was October the 21st of 2009, during this time in Missouri, the sun starts setting at 6:30. So again, Patty had told Elizabeth that she had to be home by 6, which would be before it starts getting dark. So Patty was very confident that Elizabeth would be home by 6 because Elizabeth was scared of the dark. And since Elizabeth had to travel through the woods to get home, she just knew that Elizabeth would not want to walk through the woods during the night. But when it reached 6 o'clock, Elizabeth had not made it home. So Patty immediately grabs the phone and she calls to the neighbor's house, which was the little girl that had came, and asked if she could come out. They all tell Patty that Elizabeth is not there. So Patty immediately knew something wasn't right, because the grandmother of the little girl that had came over had said that Elizabeth was never at her house, but Patty knew that Elizabeth and this little girl had left together. So she knew something wasn't right, and she then immediately called the police. So the Cole County's Sheriff's Department had arrived within 15 minutes, and the sheriff deputies had went over to the last place that Patty knew Elizabeth was at. So once again, everyone in this home had said that Elizabeth wasn't there. So the deputies had then started a search looking for Elizabeth. Involved with this search was the fire department, the local police department, and by 10 o'clock that night there was hundreds of people outside looking for her. So all of these people formed a grid search around Patty's and her neighbor's house. But this night now is slipping away, and there was still no signs of Elizabeth after they've did this grid search. So the police kept telling Patty that there was no signs of foul play, and Patty kept telling them, well, I know Elizabeth did not just vanish. She's only 9 years old, so something had to happen to her. Patty remembered that Elizabeth had her cell phone with her, so all throughout this search, and from the point that Elizabeth did not come home at 6 o'clock, she was calling Elizabeth's phone non-stop, but the calls were going straight to voicemail. location, and this was like, it was like a general location in an area of the woods. So the Missouri State Highway Patrol Sergeant David Rice had said that this was a large wooded area behind the house, but this area was very thick with woods and trees. So they were going to need backup to cover this large area. So the next day, which is now Thursday, the investigative unit had got involved, and they were asked to assist into the search of Elizabeth. So the sergeant had believed that Elizabeth was still in the area. At this time, on Thursday, a missing persons report had been sent out to the neighboring law enforcement agencies and the FBI. So they all did a search of the woods, and they had tracked down all of the local registered sex offenders. So this search was so huge that there were planes, helicopters, dogs, dive teams for the ponds and the rivers. They were trying to do anything that they could to locate Elizabeth. So Thursday afternoon, almost 24 hours since Elizabeth went missing, Sergeant Rice had then said, okay, I need to investigate the last person that was with Elizabeth, which was the 6-year-old little girl who came and knocked on the door. This 6-year-old is named Emma. So Emma was interviewed by the FBI, and Emma said that Elizabeth and her were playing, and about an hour later, Elizabeth had started walking home, and that was the last time she saw her. So Sergeant Rice had gathered evidence, and he had said that Emma was outside playing with Elizabeth, and shortly after they were playing, Emma had got stuck in some thorn bushes, and so she was crying and screaming for her older sister Alyssa to help her. Now Alyssa Bustamante at the time was 15 years old, and that was Emma's half-sister. All included in this home was Alyssa, the 15-year-old, Emma, the 6-year-old, and 11-year-old twin brothers. So all 4 of them had lived with their grandmother, who had sole legal custody of her grandchildren, and her name is Karen Brooke. So often these kids all played together at each other's houses, so it wasn't uncommon, or it wasn't as if Patty did not know, house they were going to, she was well aware of, you know, her children playing with the Karen Brooks grandchildren. So, meanwhile, all of the kids in the neighborhood were accounted for except Alyssa. So Alyssa had admitted to Sergeant Rice that she had skipped school that day, and that she was aware that the police couldn't find this little girl, but she had stated she knew nothing about it. So during initial questioning with Alyssa, the police had found that Alyssa's behavior was calm and forthcoming. Like, she was just giving them, you know, whatever they asked. She was, you know, giving them the information. So, the prosecuting attorney had said that she was not and she should not be considered a suspect at that time. So as the search continued and they had canvassed the woods behind Alyssa's home, some volunteers had stumbled across something in the woods. So it appeared to look like it was a grave in the woods, and that's when the investigative unit had primarily became involved into this search. So they were called in and they were asked to process this scene as if Elizabeth was in this hole and that was her grave. So the forensics team had processed the crime scene as a potential crime scene for Elizabeth. So this team was out there for several hours, and meanwhile the FBI had been interviewing Alyssa, and they had brought Alyssa to the scene. So once they brought her to the scene, that's when a sergeant had overheard something odd. So they had heard Alyssa say she dug the hole, and Reyes had said, "Why did you dig the hole?" And Alyssa said, "I just like digging holes, and I would bury dead animals when she found them." So it came to find that no one was in that grave. So it's getting now close to the 48-hour mark, and nothing came about as far as where Elizabeth was. However, Sergeant Rice was very suspicious of this empty hole. So he had noted that this hole that was dug was the perfect size for a small child. So back at Alyssa's home, the FBI had obtained consent to search the home, and one of the evidence officers were assigned to Alyssa's room. So when they opened Alyssa's door, they saw things that was disturbing. So the walls were covered in bizarre writings. Some of them were in pen, while others was written what appeared to be blood. In one corner of the room, there was a poem that was describing she had attempted a couple of times to commit suicide. So back in Alyssa's room, there was another wall, which was a sketch of a person. The head and the arm appeared to have a slice and slash style marking. So when they looked closer, they found that there was a name next to this sketch, which said Emma, which again is Alyssa's 6-year-old sister. There were also cards and letters taped to the bedroom wall, which was from Caesar Bustamante, which the return address on these letters said prison. So Alyssa's father was in prison, and the best friend of Alyssa's, Jennifer, said that the father had got into some kind of physical altercation, and her mother was on drugs a lot, and the mother was in and out of her life. So the FBI then spots a diary in the room, a journal. When the investigator starts to read Alyssa's diary, they read where she had referred to burning down a house and killing the people in it. And the last entry of the journal had a date of Wednesday, October 21st, which was the same day that Elizabeth had disappeared. So this writing was written in blue ink. And that part was the writing was scratched out. So she wrote in blue ink and then she scratched over the words in blue ink, except for the words, "Now I've got to go to church." So the agents that collected the diary as evidence the next morning, which is now Friday, 2 days had now passed since Elizabeth went missing. Alyssa is brought to the FBI headquarters to interview with Sergeant Rice. So before Sergeant Rice goes into the interrogation room, he was given Alyssa's diary. So they used backlighting, which could make out 2 words, which was slit and throat. So Alyssa's grandmother and Sergeant Rice and a juvenile officer were all in the interrogation room. So they started noticing that Alyssa was stressing out, and her eyes had started tremoring and her head began to shake. So right when Sergeant Rice believed that Alyssa might break, he tells her that they have her diary, and the last entry was scribbled out. So it was that point that Elizabeth then changed her demeanor, and it was like they knew what she had done. So she started revealing what happened to Elizabeth, and she tells Sergeant Rice that it was an accident. She said that they were walking in the woods and Elizabeth had fell and hit her head and she had suddenly died. So Sergeant Rice had explained to Alyssa that they were footage would show how Elizabeth had died. So, Sergeant Rice had just came out and asked Alyssa, was her throat cut? And Alyssa said yes. And that's when Alyssa's grandmother broke down and started crying. So after Alyssa had confessed, the grandmother had left out the room. So Alyssa says that she had sent Emma over to Elizabeth's house to pick up Elizabeth. And from that point, she had claimed that she told Emma to go back home and that she took Elizabeth by her hand and walked her into the woods. So they walked for 15 minutes into the woods. And she had told Elizabeth that she had something really neat to show her. And she told her that it was just a little bit further up. So Alyssa was armed with a kitchen knife, which Elizabeth was unaware of. And she had led her to a pre-dug grave. Alyssa had said that once she arrived at the hole, she began to strangle Elizabeth while she was looking at her, and that she had strangled her multiple times and stabbed her in the chest, which she believed to have been 6 or 7 times, and then she had cut her throat. After she confessed, Alyssa had agreed to take Sergeant Rice to Elizabeth's body. So the results of Elizabeth's autopsy had came in, and they appeared to mirror Alyssa's diabolical diary entry. So the investigators were able to use a blue light to finally reveal her last injury. And in part it read, "I just killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them. It was amazing. It's pretty enjoyable. I gotta go to church now. LOL. October 21st, 2009. So, because this was a premeditated murder, it had met the legal requirements for a first-degree murder case. And because she was only 15, she was still able to, she was certified to stand trial as an adult. So once the grand jury had heard evidence, they had returned with an indictment of 2 counts of murder in the first degree and armed criminal action. So they said that she had been a troubled teen and that the signs were there all along, because Alyssa liked hurting herself and others, and on her YouTube page, Alyssa lists under interests and hobbies killing people and cutting. And in one video that was captured on the school bus, she had threatened to shoot a classmate. So they said the biggest warning sign was on Elizabeth's 15th birthday, and she was hanging out with her former best friend Jennifer. And she had said she wondered what it would be like just to kill someone, see the life just drain out of someone. I wonder what it would feel like, that type of power, to take that away from someone. So 2 years and 4 months after the fateful events, a trial date was finally set. The prosecution got an unexpected setback, and the defense had filed a motion to suppress Alyssa's confession. Alyssa's defense team claims that because she was juvenile, some of the questions asked during her interrogation wasn't allowed under Missouri law. The judge agrees, and Alyssa's confession is thrown out. So, having the confession suppressed was a huge blow, said Sergeant Rice. And then there was another big blow to the case. The U.S. Supreme Court is about to likely rule that life sentences without the possibility for parole for juveniles is unconstitutional. So prosecutors offer up a plea deal to the defense, an amendment to murder in the second degree with a range of 10 to 30 years of life imprisonment with the chance of parole. So Sergeant Rice had notified the mother and the family that that's what he was determined to do. So Patty, which again is Elizabeth's mother, had said she was mad. She was very mad. So Alyssa's defense team had accepted the plea deal. And during the sentencing phase, she addressed the victim's family and states, "I cannot even understand what you guys are going through. I'm sorry for that. If I could give my life to bring her back, I would, and I'm sorry." So Elizabeth's sister Stephanie said she don't believe that she can be sorry. She doesn't believe anything that she said. Patty said she believed that she was being fed what to say to them from her attorney. So Alyssa was sentenced on the murder charge to life in prison with the chance of parole, plus 30 years for armed criminal action. Under Missouri law, she will serve 35 years and 5 months before she will be eligible for parole. Following Alyssa's conviction, Patty had filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Alyssa, grandparents, and siblings. She was awarded a $400,000 settlement. She also sued Alyssa herself to ensure that the killer teen cannot profit from her crime, no books or movies or anything. So, an update on July 25th of 2017, Patty had agreed to settle a wrongful death lawsuit that required the imprisoned killer to pay her more than $5 million. Under the lawsuit settlement, Patty agreed to dismiss any remaining counts. And also, with this agreement, Alyssa is required to notify Patty if she receives any compensation from publicity about the case. So that is the case of Alyssa Bustamante. Thank you so much for watching, and if you guys are still here, say hey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment